This is the second part in a three-part series on calculating the net present value. Okay, so here we are with the discussion of net present value, and as is my usual practice, I've gone ahead and set up a spreadsheet off camera. Now, the idea here is for you to hit pause and to go ahead and fill this information in and catch up to where I'm at now. And that's not a bad thing to do because you need practice kind of setting up spreadsheets and understanding where to put things. So go ahead and hit pause and do that. A word of advice, it might be easier if you were to take a telephone or a tablet or a computer with multiple monitors so that you can have the video up on screen and have your own spreadsheet up on the screen as well. So you can just hit pause and hold the video still and zoom in if you need to or whatever it takes and just fill this in. So I'll let you hit pause and I'll pick up after you've hit pause and started that process. So this is the second video in a series, and what I hope that you'll notice is we've already gotten the answer. In a previous video, I used this exact same set of information, this same information set, and I calculated the net present value of this investment of a $100,000 investment up front. So you've purchased a piece of equipment to use on a farm. And that has led to a $15,000 a year cash flow, meaning you've got an extra $15,000 a year because you made this investment. And in the final year of the investment, you're gonna get rid of the asset, and you're gonna get paid $10,000 when you get rid of it, a salvage value. You're gonna sell the used piece of equipment. And we had an 8% discount rate. And in a previous video, I'll make sure I link to that so you can follow along with that video. We used the annuity formula in Microsoft Excel to give us a net present value, and what we found was that we had a $5,000 net present value, $5,000 and some change. And again, the interpretation of that is not that I only made $5,000. The right way to interpret it is I was able to meet my cost of capital, my 8% that I needed to get in order to justify the investment, and then I made $5,283.16 on top of that. And what we're going to do in this video is show you a couple of different ways that we can calculate the net present value, mostly because depending on the situation that you're facing, a different way of calculating might come in handy. So the first thing we're going to do is I like to call it the create a table method, and there's many opportunities and situations where making a table is the best way to do things. And honestly, it's the easiest way to do it and still get everything right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to move to cell G4 here on our spreadsheet. We're just going to click on cell G4. We're going to type an equal sign. And we're going to find the present value of the $100,000 that you invested in time period 0. So the way to think about this is time period 0 is, say, January of the first year of this investment, and time period 1 is December 31st. So we'll type an equal sign and we'll type PV because we're trying to find the present value of our cash flows. The first thing Excel asks for is the rate. In this case, we're going to want to click on our 8% discount rate, our cost of capital. And then, as is the usual thing that we're going to do, is we're going to use that absolute cell reference. And the absolute cell reference is very straightforward to do. You just hit F4, and it's going to stick these nice dollar signs in front of the B and the 7. And that means whenever we move the formula around, we're always going to point to cell B7. That's what the dollar signs do. I have another video on absolute and relative cell references that I'll link to so you can see that. We'll type a comma, and we're just going to follow the prompts in Excel, and that's the beauty of it. Once you've gotten a little experience working with Microsoft Excel, you find that you can just follow the prompts that Excel gives you. We're going to click on the number of periods. In this case, though, it's going to be our 0, right? We're in time period 0 for this one specific instance. Then we type a comma, and we're going to leave we're going to leave the payment section blank. There's two ways to do this. We can type a 0 here, and then a comma, or just another comma, and it will leave the argument blank. And then we're going to enter the future value. In this case, the future value is our $100,000 investment. And we have to always put a negative sign in front of that because that's just the way these formulas work. And with some time and practice, you'll begin to understand exactly how that works and why we do it that way. So we're going to hit a close parentheses and we're going to press enter, and we get our result. And if we invest $100,000 in time period 0, we end up with a net present value or a present value of that $100,000 of exactly $100,000 because there's no discounting going on because we're in time period 0. Now what I'm going to do is click on cell G4 again and watch real carefully what I do. I'm going to move the cursor to the very corner of cell G4, and as I move it to that corner, the indicator, the cursor changes. Here it's this kind of thick plus sign, and now we get this skinny plus sign. I always call it the crosshairs. I'm sure that Microsoft Excel has an official name for this. I like calling it the crosshairs. So if you know what it's called, I would appreciate if you would post in the comments because I'd kind of like to know what the official name is. Now I'm going to click with my mouse, with the left mouse button, and I'm going to hold and drag down. And when I do that, I'm going to be able to calculate the present value of each of these cash flows. And then I finish, well, let's do some formatting. My formatting, sometimes the formatting gets overwritten. So I'm going to put a line on the bottom of this number here so you can see a nice visual break. That's always a good thing to do when you're building your spreadsheets. Now I'm just going to take these present values that I calculated, and I'm just going to hit the auto sum button. So up in the upper right hand corner, I don't think it's where you can see it. Let me move my spreadsheet around so you can see that a little bit. It was off the screen capture software. So here in the upper right hand corner is this auto sum feature, and there's a pull down menu here where you can find more functions. So if you don't know where to go to find functions, here's where you go to find all these functions we've been using. So you can just kind of find them yourself if you ever wanted to look up a new function. But the easy thing to do is just click on the sigma, right? That's a Greek uppercase sigma, and that will automatically sum this column. Oh, whoops, let's try that again. Okay, we hit enter and we automatically sum this column of numbers. And now let me go back to the view I was at before. There we go. That does the trick. And here we did this column method, and we end up with the same $5,283.16 net present value that we did when we used the annuity formula method. And it's kind of handy to try things using different methods, because if you're just trying to get your hands around how these functions work and how formulas work, it's sometimes nice to try it 2 or 3 different ways just to see if you get the same answer. If you get the same answer both times, you've either made the same mistake or you have it right. And that's a pretty straightforward thing to do. And this table method, it works well in some circumstances. If you have a table anyways that you're calculating, might as well go ahead and use this table method because you already have it in place. But that's not the only thing you can do when you have a table of your cash flows. Another thing we can do is actually use Excel's net present value formula. To do that, we're going to move to cell B15, and we're going to type an equals sign, and we're going to type NPV. And as you can see right there, it says on the screen, that's a great thing about Excel, that this function returns the present value of an investment based on a discount rate that we're going to give it, and a series of future payments, negative values, and income, positive values. So we'll open the parenthesis up, and again, it's going to prompt us. It's going to tell us exactly what to pick. So our rate is our discount rate. Sometimes we might call that our cost of capital, right? This is the idea is we could borrow money for this, or if we have an investor, the investor expects that much of a return. We're going to click on that 8% hiding out in cell B7. We're going to type a comma, and then we're going to highlight all of the values in our net cash flow table using our cursor. And we let go of the mouse and type a closing parentheses and press enter, and we get a number. But oh, okay, y'all, something's not quite right with this number. And that's just what I was talking about a moment ago. Calculating these things 2 or 3 different ways when you're first learning how will help you catch a few common pitfalls that I've seen people make over the years. Here's what I did wrong. Let me double click on cell B15. And we can go into what we call edit mode, so I can edit a formula. And here's the mistake. In time period 0, I discounted that cash flow of negative 100,000. Because that was the first cash flow on my list, Microsoft Excel thought that the cash flow, that negative 100,000, happened at the end of year 1 instead of at the end of year 0. So there's my mistake. I have to eliminate that $100,000 because Excel is discounting that negative $100,000. So let me just drag that and get it out of my formula and hit enter and see if that fixes the problem. Well, guess what? It didn't fix the problem. And that's a mistake that I showed you on purpose, because what I wanted you to see is that Excel's built-in net present value function is it's looking for you to put a very specific thing into the function. We call it garbage in, garbage out. If you don't give Excel what Excel is looking for, Excel's not going to give you the right answer. So Excel has trouble handling that upfront investment in their net present value function. I would call it a flaw. I'm sure that Microsoft calls it a feature. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and edit that formula, and we're going to go to the end of the formula, and we're going to type a plus sign, and we're going to add that negative $100,000 cash flow hiding out in cell F4. So we press enter, and we get our number. We get our 5,200 and some change number. And so there we see 3 different ways that we can calculate net present value. And which one do you use? Which one's best? That just depends on the situation that you're in. And you have to take some time to kind of get a feel for what you should be doing. And you've got to make your decisions based on the information that you have. Well, I hear that music, and that music means that I've got to go soon. As always, if you think you know of a better way of doing this, a more efficient way, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Please share your experiences with finding the net present value in Microsoft Excel below. I'd like to hear from you. Thank you very much. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.